We're live.
We're all set to go.
We're live.
It is now 10 o'clock. I want to welcome everybody here to our June meeting. If you don't know me, my name is Nick Madison. I'm the chairman of the Authority for Growth. And we're going to call to order and have a roll call. I'm here. Mr. Nigro. Yes. Allison Walsh. Sarah Reganelli.
Here.
Alejandro. I don't see her today. She's under a full-time job down at the legislature and is very busy down there today. Jasmine?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Higgins said she may be running 10 minutes late this morning. She's over here.
Okay. And Danielle, our new mother, apparently her baby isn't going. She got sick this morning and she wanted to be here, but she couldn't make it. And I did speak to her on the phone yesterday, and she's very excited about, what we're doing today in terms of decision on the planning and the involvement of Pine Hills neighborhood. So I wish she could be here today, but she can't. So we do have a forum. The next item on the agenda is review and approval of the meeting minutes of May 8th. They've been distributed, and I would ask for a resolution to approve those minutes. Sarah, a second.
Second.
Allison, any discussion on those minutes, changes, additions? Hearing none, I will close the discussion and ask for a vote of approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The next order of business is a very important piece that we've been working on for months. Is the approval of the planning contract. I would ask the folks standing there, just step out for a minute.
Absolutely.
While we present the information. I must say, Dylan has been very diligent, hardworking on this. It hasn't been an easy process, but he was always there to provide us with that.
Great. Well, thanks, everybody. As many of you were involved and understand, this has been a pretty in-depth process, and we're happy to be done with it, but at the same time, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. So we posted the RP on the
Dawn, why don't you get up to the
Oh,
podium
sorry.
so that we can get your voice.
No problem.
Anybody?
All right, so, hi, everybody. We posted the RFP on the 25th of February. We were very fortunate to get a number of responses. We actually had 11 complete responses. From there, our review committee recommended 4 to be then reviewed by a selection committee, which actually made the recommendation that you're reviewing today. So out of those 4, 3 were asked in for interviews, which were all on the 12th, right here on campus. And as a result, we now have 1.
Yeah, just if I may, Mr. Chairman, sure. The review committee that selected this was comprised of our chairman, Sarah Reganelli, Ali Walsh, and myself, and we did have very, very good proposals from a number of other firms, but we felt that the one that we selected was the most responsive to who and what this campus is. So, that's why we are recommending for your approval. The firm of CPL, and Nick remembers, they used to be called
Patterson Lee.
Patterson Lee, thank you, Steve. Helps to be around for a while. So, Mr. Chairman, that's, any questions on the selection process or anything else on that effect?
I would also point out that one of our priorities was to try to get an Albany-based firm CPL has been in Albany. They have offices in Latham for 20 years. And it was like 30 people here in Albany County. They are a national firm with a lot of resources. And I will emphasize the fact that they were the most affordable bidder. They were a little better financially. And it was our goal to try to contain costs as much as we could. And at one step in the process, we selected 4, we sent them back for revisions, and that's how we ended up where we are. A very open process, and I would point out too that the early review of the whole 11 included much, Sandy Masters, Michael Alley, senior planner from Albany County, staff input, stakeholders input. So I guess if there's any questions, well, anybody on the committee could answer them or add anything they may want to add. Okay. I want to welcome Amber Polino. Thank you for being here this morning. We are in the process of introducing the resolution to improve the planning process. So being that I don't hear any questions or comments, I would turn it over to Mr. Owens to present the formal resolution.
Thank you, Chair. This, board members, if you check your package, this is resolution, it's on page 4 of the packages, and it's 25-6-01. The resolution provides the statutory authority out of the specific sections that authorizes the authority to engage these services, and that's on the first couple pages. It goes through a little bit of the history of the authority and how we acquired the real property that we're about to conduct the master plan on. And then it also summarizes what Dylan had just provided in more detail about the RFP being issued openly, competitively, publicly in February, and then the process as to how we got to the recommendation to the board. This is a recommendation at this point. And that's why you see a blank line in the whereas clause about who the vendor would be. That's obviously the board's determination. The recommendation is CPL. So if the board so chose, the resolution would be amended to include those letters in the resolution, CPL. And then also you're authorizing specifically, in addition to appointing them as the people to provide, as the entity to provide the services, you're authorizing your CEO to negotiate a contract with that firm. And I have one amendment, and the cost not to exceed $500,000. So that's the number that is going to be inserted as well into the resolution. So with those 2 amendments, the resolution is before you. And Chair, subject to any questions, I would ask you to call for a motion, second vote.
Okay. I'll note that board member Jasmine Higgins is not here. Jasmine, we've been talking about the planning contract and what happened in that process. And we're getting ready to go now. Okay. All right. I would call for a resolution as outlined by Mr. Owens. Alejandro and Sarah. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out that we were originally by the county executive that had our governance committee last month, and he was very clear, and I think shared the opinion of most of the board, all of the board as well, that our goal is to really lay the groundwork for success, not at all to slow the process down. And as part of the selection committee, we did speak with each of the responding firms about the need for flexibility, the need for early wins, the ability for them to really flow with the process and ensure that we're not only maximizing the site, but also ensuring that we're complete as well. So I just wanted to point that out as part of the process that we're focused on it.
Yes. Any further discussion?
I have a question. How did you structure the fee, not knowing how many meetings and whatever else will happen?
I'm sorry, what was the question, John?
How we structured the fee.
How do you structure
Well,
the fee, not knowing how many meetings?
They bid on this, with a set fee, so those prices were generated by the consultants, and as Chairman Hawes said, this is the lowest bidder. But, we went through this in pretty good detail about what's going to be involved, and in particular the public engagement piece, John. Because we know that, the input from the community, the neighborhood, the community at large, elected officials, stakeholders of all shapes, sizes, have to be engaged in this process. So we're very comfortable that they have the resources, and as the chairman mentioned, luckily they have a local office here, which helps tremendously. But that the team they assembled is one that can get everything done that we need to see happen.
Basically, the discussions are, they're going to do whatever it takes. There's a finite number of hours. Yes. They're very excited about this opportunity. I will also say that, they recently just received a contract from Madison Community College for some work there. And they've been working in Clinton County Community College, a very similar area, familiar with New York and the challenges that all the colleges are facing. So, hearing nothing else, I would call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
You want to do a roll call?
Oh, you want me to do a roll?
That's how I said it.
I'm sorry. That's why you're here tonight. Sorry about that. I am a yes. Mr. Nigro?
Yes.
Allison Walsh?
Yes.
Sarah Raymond?
Yes.
Alejandro Polino?
Yes.
Jasmine Higgins?
Yes.
Okay. And Danielle is absent. Approved. Thank you very much. It's been a long process, a lot of hours we put in, but I believe we put 12 months the effort and the investment. I guess we can, right now, we're going to have, the next item on the agenda is consider boost of the team and then presentation of their proposal process. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome here. The vote was very close. Your contract was approved unanimously by all those in attendance.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Mike, I'd like you to introduce your team and give the board a presentation on where you think we're headed.
Good to go? Great, thank you.
Introduce yourself, Mike, and the team.
Which one moves it?
You need to use the mouse or keypad. I figured that might be easier.
So advance.
Sure.
There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, and first and foremost, thank you. My name is Mike Mistriner. I'm a Senior Vice President and Architect with CPL, Clark Patterson Lee. Along with me today are some of my colleagues. With me, Matt Smullen. Matt Smullen is our project manager for this project. He's an engineer based in Albany. Rick Henry, who is the president of our firm, is out of the country on a planned vacation, so he'll be back this weekend, hopefully. Dave Hart, who's not here, but leads our utilities and our engineering group. So we're a full service firm and that we bring a compendium of all of the services of architects and engineers. I'll explain that on another slide. Greg Royer is our Director of Energy Solutions. Will be involved in the project. Lauren Tarcio, Albany, also based in our Albany office, is a planner and designer on the project and will be involved in it. Rebecca Kiefer, who is not here today, she's in the lower corner. She'll be leading a lot of the community engagements, a lot of the dialogue sessions, a lot of the listening sessions that we want to have with folks in the community. Justin Steinbeck, who's not here today, but is our grant specialist. So as we approach and pursue any grants, he can certainly help us with that. Andrew Kosa, economic development. Steve Hyde, some of you may have met Steve at the interview, also helping with economic development. And then two of our friends from CRESA, Zach Conley, who's the managing partner with CRESA, and Eloise Paul, who's the senior vice president as well. So thank you on behalf of all of us here today. So CPL. CPL is a little over 500 folks from New York down to Florida and offices all the way in between. We have 7 offices across New York State, 27 offices altogether. We've been in business for about 50 years. We're architects, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, plumbing engineers, structural engineers, interior designers, landscape architects, civil engineers. So we have this full compendium of services that we can bring to bear on this project, which we find to be a tremendously exciting opportunity and a tremendously exciting project. Our practice areas span between education, K-12 higher education, healthcare, a lot of community and culture, and infrastructure. So as it relates to roads, bridges, underground utilities, and infrastructure. Oop, the other way. What sets us apart, and I touched on it, I think it's our sort of our full service capabilities and all of the services that we bring to this project, which is a tremendously exciting project in figuring out the reuse of this campus. We're a very collaborative firm, so it'll be a collaborative, innovative approach. We want to work with all of you. We want to listen at the end of the day. We want this to be a successful project. It needs to be a successful project. So ours is to help facilitate that, but we want to listen to a lot of folks in the community. That's tremendously important to us. There you go. Is that better?
Great. Thank you, Zach Conley with CRESA. Give you a little background on CRESA quickly. I own the Albany and Rochester offices of CRESA, but we have offices across the United States and in Canada. Why that's important is because we have expertise and resources beyond what we have here in Albany. And so if we need to tap into those resources and expertise, we have a really deep bench. CRESA is a commercial real estate advisory firm. Oh, just over here. There we go. Commercial real estate advisory firm. We're a little bit different than a lot of commercial real estate firms out there in that our focus is not on the landlord or the investor of the property necessarily, but on the occupier. And so it gives us a really unique perspective into the occupants and what they need, and pinning them with what you have here at St. Rose. We're an unbiased advocate. We don't want to list your properties necessarily. We want to help you fill them with the right groups, with the right organizations. We have an integrated platform of transaction management that's a brokerage type work, workplace solutions, that's workplace design and strategy, project management, which is a bit of oversight, like an owner's rep is another way to hear of that, oversight of design and construction projects. We do transition and relocation management. And then, of course, as I've mentioned, some of our advisory services are what we really are helping with on this project to really bring the feasibility of the opportunities in the market to the project itself. So that's us.
Good. So the process that we want to really begin to undertake with this, there's a lot of square footage here. There's almost 1 million square feet, 71 buildings. So there's a lot to really digest and begin to understand. We want to go through a process over the next 6 months, and we've outlined a series of phases here that talk about site data analysis, community engagement, which is a tremendously big part of this equation. But one of the first things that we want to do is really get an understanding of these buildings. We want to go through the buildings. We want to understand the condition of the buildings. We want to understand the condition of the infrastructure and do an assessment on the infrastructure that's involved. Because as we start to plan these buildings, and I think Zach touched on it, we want to find the right uses for these buildings. We want this to be successful, and we want this to be successful for Albany and not have these buildings sit here. So finding the right uses for the buildings and how they might adapt, respond, react that's part of our initial several weeks of feasibility and understanding. Community engagement is a tremendously important part of this project. We want to talk to the Pine Hills neighborhood. We want to talk to all of the community stakeholders that are involved in this. We want to talk to local communities. We want to talk to neighborhoods. We want to talk to the school districts. We want to talk to hospitals. We want to talk to everyone in the community who has a stake in this, because this is your community and we want to make this a success. So reaching out and understanding and listening to all those key stakeholders, I think, will be vital as we develop and understand the reuse of this. Public meetings, surveys, feedback loops. We want to go through a series of mechanisms to really gather all of that information. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No.
Okay. Just an example. So we want to make it, it wants to be fun, it wants to be interactive, it wants to be diverse, it wants to be a partnership, it wants to be collaborative, it wants to be all of those things. So as we embark on that, that will be an important part of this sort of listening tour as we embark on our development of this. Concepts and feasibility. We want to explore the land use and adaptive reuse scenarios. By understanding the buildings, we can determine how can we adapt to these buildings? What can we use these buildings as? Understanding the space utilization, understanding the programming that could go into these buildings. We're probably going to have to get into a zoning evaluation. So going through and understanding the local zoning. Are there changes that need to be made in any of the zoning to make this adaptable for what future uses might be? We don't know, because we don't know what those future uses are, but there very well could be some zoning changes that are a part of that. Design and implementation. We want to look at a series of scenarios on this. How do we adapt this? What are the adaptive reuses? How does sustainability play into this? And Greg will talk about that in just a second, but sustainability, energy usage, that's an important part of this. We want to go through a series of scenarios and we want to present it back to the community. This isn't something that's going to be done in a vacuum. This is going to be a very transparent process. It's iterative. We want to go back and forth. We want to share with you what we've learned. We want to go back and forth and really try and digest and bring that together before we finalize anything. You see, we built a model of the campus. It helped us get our kind of heads around this and try and understand the boundaries of the campus, how this fits, how it begins to work. You know, if you remove the building, if you kept the building, how does that begin to work? We also started to even give some thought to considering, what about the campus? What does it begin to look like? This is just a diagram, a bunch of arrows on it, some circles, but what we were trying to understand are the building typologies and what are those options? What might work in there? This end of the campus, you have residence halls, you have the next big Centennial Residence Hall. Might this be an opportunity to look at housing? Might it be an opportunity to look at senior housing, the market rate housing? Is there an opportunity to explore that? We already have housing in that area. It's probably relatively easily adaptable. How do we explore that? That'll be part of our strategy. We have an interesting building over here, and Zach and I have had a lot of conversations about the science building and some of the lab space. You want to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, it's lab space is very, lab space is in high demand in the area and very low supply. And it's very expensive to build lab space from the ground up in the thousands per square foot to create lab space. So is there a reuse of that building? I imagine there are groups out there who want to be in a facility like that, who could benefit from being in a facility like that by keeping the costs really low and create some kind of a biotech, semiconductor type facility there in the science building.
Adjacent to the science building is the School of Education. So can these work together? Is there an opportunity to leverage the lab space, the wet labs, the dry labs, the classroom, the spaces that are in there as an innovation center, as Zach was talking about? So we want to explore that. We don't know, but we know that's the type of building that we have. How do we best utilize that? How do we best open that up? We know there's a library in the back corner, and we know there's a large athletic and event center. How does that work? What is the next use for that? How does the community engage in that? How does the community become a part of those buildings? So a lot of what our exploration wants to be as we get into those conversations. Greg?
Good morning. My name is Greg Royer. I lead the Energy Solutions Group at CPL. And our role in this process is to really take a look at everything, see what you have, really create an energy master plan as an extension of the overall plan and see, what makes sense. Does it make sense to look at an EPC project, energy and infrastructure as a service? And, what do we do with some of the centralized systems? So with the moving pieces that are currently in place, we really don't have a great idea yet, but as we go through the process, we'll kind of lay everything out and say, here's, several options and directions that we can go in. And most of those, like we mentioned before in the final interview, would be focused on leveraging baseline savings to pay for the project over time. So we'll be looking at things like that, leveraging our grant professionals in-house to look at additional funding that could offset some of the overall costs.
As Greg had said, we really want to understand that there's a centralized system that connects the majority of these large buildings in this area. So separating that system, how do we do that? How do we separate it? Who are the users? What is going forward? We know energy is going to be a big part of this. Separating the engineering infrastructure will be a big part of it as well. So that's important as we continue to think about this and go forward. Schedule. The phases that we had talked about, kind of laid out here, phases 1 through 4, from site analysis, public engagement, concept development, and then ultimately an implementation strategy. Assuming we start this in June, and thank you for approving this today. So conceptually, we can start this in June, and we're projecting it out over 6 months of this process, really, of understanding, of community engagement, of design exploration, of programming exploration, unfolding over the next 6 months. At the end of it, we want to ultimately have an implementation roadmap, something that is useful to this board so that they can continue to go forward, find key community partners who can come in here, be key stakeholders in the development of these buildings, and make this a thriving part of the city. It's a beautiful campus. Quite honestly, there's some really wonderful buildings. We're sitting in one now. They've done a beautiful job with these buildings. So finding the right reuse for those buildings will be really critical as we go forward. I think, yeah, that was the last slide. I can't underestimate or understate really the community engagement components and the listening sessions that we want to go through. I think that's going to be really, really important part of making this process work and really finding a tremendously viable solution for what happens with this campus. You're not alone. This is happening across the United States. Bless you. This is happening across the United States. There's campuses closing. We're actually working up in Clinton, New York, at Clinton Community College that recently went under as well. It's actually a beautiful site, overlooks Lake Champlain. It's kind of nice. So we're exploring possibilities for some of the buildings there to turn into hospitality. Does it become a hotel? How does that begin to work? So we're seeing a lot of these happen around the country. I actually have I was sharing with this morning, I have 5 articles in my bag about campuses that are closing and or considering closing. And a lot of it has to do with the demographic cliff that's out there. We know there's less students going to high school, therefore less students going to college. So it's a real big factor. And what is the correct reuse for these? Because you don't want them to become sort of an albatross sitting in your community, right? We want to have a viable use for these. We want to have complementing uses that really work and feed off one another together. Did I miss anything? Eloise, anything you're thinking of?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Zach? Right?
Good job.
Yeah, I think. Want to mention anything about Albany?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, Mike's expertise, we're a principal-led organization. The principals of our firm are very much hands-on, Mike included, and even Rick Henry, who Mike mentioned is the president of our firm, and he's going to be involved in this project. I mean, we look at projects that are important to us, and we sort of designate the appropriate level of representation at our leadership level. Mike's obviously the technical expert on a project like this, and, we're not going to steal his thunder. We're not going to get in his way. We're going to let him lead the charge, but I manage our Albany office, and just so happens of all the offices that we have around our firm, Albany is one of the offices that represents almost everything that we do. We have the architects, structural engineers, civil, mechanical, electrical, planners.
So Matt, what you're saying is the Albany office is the best office in the company?
Absolutely. That is absolutely the case. We have a great network of people around the firm, but the people in our local offices are excited to be involved in this project. I'll make sure that the local resources are really dedicated and committed to what we're doing here. So we're really excited to get started.
Yeah, it's great.
I think actually just one
Please,
additional thing. One thing that I think about that's been very important is we're looking at the project schedule here. We plan to accomplish this work in pretty short order. I know timeline is very important for a number of different parties here. I think about there's the amount of time that you want to spend planning, and then there's the amount of time that you want to spend doing. Jumping into the doing right away can sometimes we've seen examples of some mistakes. And Eloise and I, this is under a completely different administration. Eloise and I are now working with RPI University and helping them transition their technology park that they have. A technology park, I put in quotes because that's what they call it. But what it's become is a business park, and it never became what it was supposed to become because they jumped in and started doing, I think, a little bit too soon. The idea here is that we don't want to hold anyone back, but we want to make sure that we're planning for sustainability so that whatever gets designed here is something that's important to the neighborhood 20, 30, 40 years from now, not just let's get deals done, although that's important, but let's get deals done, but let's get the right ones done. And that would be our goal, is to put together a plan that could do that for you.
So why couldn't you do phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time, since you have different teams working on it?
There's probably overlap in there. It's not just, we're not going to do one and it's going to stop and then another one will
I
start.
just looked at my mind, it looked like it did.
Yeah, there's always, I think it does that, but there's always some level of overlap that happens in there. Inevitably.
Sarah pointed out, and Sarah was part of our committee right through the process, was the need for flexibility. We have some things that are possibly cooking right now that we're not gonna turn down. And that you have to be able to leapfrog the planning process at times because you've got a really strong proposal. And we talked about that in the interview process, that it's just not gonna be this box and that box. We're gonna
It's moving.
because we have significant interest and good interest. And we're also challenged, we being the authority, that we have $40 million in debt. That, as we sell off buildings, that's gonna go right, that those proceeds will go right to the debt. And, we have a strong desire to reduce that as quickly as possible.
I think those big deals that you're talking about are the catalysts, right? And that's where you start to frame strategy around. And so absolute flexibility in how we go about this. There are things that might be in the 10th step, while we're on step 1, right? But we need to be executing on 10, and that's fine too. We can make that work. I think you need a catalyst for this. You're going to need something that big project. The hardest part about any of these projects that I ever see is that first comer, right? That first person to take the dive and say, yeah, we want to be part of this campus and this university. So it's great that you have that interest.
We talked about that at length in the interview process.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to be flexible because those are going to come up, right? We may be moving along and then someone comes in and there's an interest from another party and we'll have to be flexible.
You got to measure the quality and financial with all of those things. Which we're doing. Well, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I just wanted to emphasize that the public comment engagement in phase 2, because of these catalysts, I would argue is very important to the community life, because if things are moving,
Sure.
if you don't have that community engagement, it's been going on for over a year now, because we live here. So, we're here now with you, but this has been an issue since last year, right? So there's a sense of urgency
Sure.
That some people too.
Yeah,
That I would continue to highlight, that I understand, the timeline and, the different aspects of it, but because of these catalysts and because of the news and because of how small the is, I think it's very important to at least start the engagement before those 7 weeks.
Well said. We can do that.
Yeah, we have a kickoff meeting right after this meeting here today, so we're not letting any dust settle.
Yeah, no, we're hitting it fast. But we can absolutely, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it, right? The flexibility, the ability to move stuff around.
Any other, sir?
I just know in this world, a 6-month timeline is lightning speed, so thank you for being responsive to that and really packing all of this in, and having your team available to be able to get this done in a condensed amount of time. And typically, something of this scope could take a significant amount of additional time.
It could take twice that long.
It's really, really fantastic to see. Totally agree, let's start that community engagement right away, because, we're hearing it, and we want to make sure that that's framed really well.
And you all have been living this longer than we have, to your point, right? We've been living it for a little short period, you've been living it for much longer. I can't even imagine.
There's a lot of eyes on it.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Not hearing any, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you again.
And there are members of the public here. I would maybe hope that you could hang around.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. We're here.
And maybe, I don't want to introduce everybody in the room, but, please make yourselves available.
Yeah, we're
We want
here.
a transparent process. If people here may want to introduce themselves to the community, we'd like you to put time right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here to listen. And again, at the end of the day, I mean, I say this all the time, this isn't, when this is completed, this is yours, right? So it's ours, I mean, in a sense, but I mean, I think it's yours in your community, and we want it to be successful and we want it to work. And so we're committed to listening and getting to that point. It's going to take a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of work to get there, but we're excited about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll step out. I'll get this out of your way.
Oh, okay. How are you? I'm good.
Okay. Well, I would like to welcome Danielle to our meeting. So nice to have you here. I thought maybe you'd bring a guest with you, but we're busy.
Yeah. He'll be here next month, after he gets his vaccine.
Okay. So nice of you to make it this morning. I know.
Always support.
Where are we at? 8 weeks?
He's 6 weeks old. Yeah.
So tiny. Well, we're glad you were here for the presentation. I know in your role with the neighborhood association, you're going to play a critical role in it. And they're going to hang around so that we can introduce yourself. And, so I'm really glad you made it for this. Thank you. The next thing is Amy, the CFO report.
Good morning, everyone. In your packets are the year-to-date financials through April. So we'll start with the balance sheet. So as of April 30th, the cash balance was $575,000. A small amount of accounts receivable, which are the Albany County Hurricanes and the Albany Symphony Orchestra. We have roughly $1 million in prepaid expense. That is the annual insurance payment, so that's the remaining 9 or 10 months that are left in that. $4 million in the Wilmington Trust Debt Reserve, which we need to have for the bonds. And then moving down to fixed assets, we have, net of accumulated depreciation, roughly 35 million in fixed assets, which of course is the campus and the buildings. Moving down to liabilities, we have 108,000 in accounts payable. This includes payments for appraisal services, legal, IT, and mostly utilities. As the campus is being filled, the utilities are going up, of course, because there's more services used. Down below, we have a deferred revenue of $1 million. Those are county funds that we received through reimbursement for the large insurance policy that we paid back in April. Are there any questions on the balance sheet?
I have a question. How do you compute the accumulated depreciation?
We take the total amount of fixed assets, $35 million, and depreciate it over 39 years.
39.
Yep, we worked with Bonavito, came up with a schedule for depreciation, and we use that. So it's about $75,000 a month.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, we'll move on to the P&L then, if there aren't any other questions. Operating revenue, roughly $734,000 year to date. Again, the majority of this is county reimbursement for operating costs. We have $22,000 that we have in interest and dividends on the debt reserve, and a small amount of rental income. Moving to expenses, larger line items are, of course, the bond issuance costs for $861,000. And insurance is $208,000, so that'll be $1 million a month if we move out of the prepaid for that large $1.25 million insurance policy. Legal fees, $56,000 year to date. Moving down, our payroll costs, including benefits, are $120,000. Again, this is for the facilities and security staff that we have at the campus. And then utilities year to date are $58,000, which again are all National Grid and the 100 accounts we pay monthly. Any questions on that?
Back to depreciation, now it's listed as an expense, but it's not a cash item.
It's not, it's below the one. Yeah. So the entry every month is depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Amy on the financials? Albany claim form?
Yep. So just a quick update, to date, as of today, we have, sent 3 claim forms to the county. The first one was back in April for the $1.25 million insurance policy that we needed to pay for the campus. April operating cost claim form was roughly $166,000, which we did receive the funds for this week. And I submitted last week.
Last week, it's in process right now.
Yep, the May operating cost, which was a bit higher at roughly $439,000, but again, that included $155,000 expense for purchasing the contents of the college, including the vehicles and whatnot, and other costs such as payroll and utilities.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to just acknowledge the help and support that Dave Riley, the county's Director of Finance and Budget Office, has been providing, helping us get these invoices approved on a timely basis. That's not an easy task on his side, and just wanted to appreciate just thank Dave for his help in getting those approved in a very timely basis.
The 155 pages of backup that were included in.
And Dave reads every single line.
No, thank you for all the detail, that helps a lot.
That's it for me.
Okay, any more for Amy? Dave? Okay, let's move on to the CEO report. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to report things are doing relatively well on the campus, in large part thanks to our new Director of Facilities, Joe Galea. Is that right, Joe? Okay. I was calling Joe Galia for the longest period of time. You finally corrected me that the proper pronunciation is right. But, you know, we do have some issues on the campus. As you know, this is an older, you know, we've got some older buildings, older facilities. And, you know, there's been some trail off in the maintenance of facilities over the last couple of years by the college, just because lack of funds. But Joe's been keeping things going on that front. We do have some challenges in trying to access the IT network. You know, there's some issues going back and forth between the college and ourselves. The college is very protective of the student data that they have on their network, as they should be. But on that same network, there are some critical systems that we need to manage on the campus, things like fire suppression systems, door access systems, and you know, some of the various control systems. So we're working through that. Our attorney, Paul Goldman, has been working with the college's attorneys, and we hope to have a satisfactory resolution of that hopefully today, if not at the latest tomorrow.
There's
You
a
know,
call at 12.
I'm sorry?
There's a call at 12.
Yeah, and I can't be on that.
Okay, I'll send it to Amy then.
So the other thing, we continue to see a high degree of interest in the campus by well, let me just, I don't want to mention any names, but we'll just say interested parties. And as we all know, these interested parties are very interested, but we're not sure how much of that interest will ultimately translate into economically viable transactions. One area that we're seeing a lot of interest on, which was a surprise to me, not many others, was the interest for the campus to be utilized for daycare, pre-K, and you know, early childhood types of services. Apparently, there is somewhat of a dearth of services in the community, and there's a high demand. So that's something we've gotten a lot of interest on, which I was surprised to see. We have had interest. You did see in the papers the folks at New York Creates who've expressed an interest in the campus. We very much would welcome that kind of interest. They are a quality organization that is extremely well funded. For those of you who don't know, this is the group that was awarded the $850 million designation as a semiconductor hub. They're one of 3 in the world. So that would be, you know, a very welcome involvement. Where they fit, too early to tell, and that's exactly the kind of thing that we would rely on our consultants to help us assess as we go along. There are a number of other real estate issues, Mr. Chairman, that I would like to discuss, but given those are still in negotiations, I would prefer to do that in executive session if the board would accommodate me on that. But with that, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board members. Yeah, Joe.
The state road occupancy under our agreement ends the end of this month.
Maybe. We've gotten word from the college that they may need to extend that to July 15th. That's under discussion right now. The wind down is a little bit more involved than they thought it might have been, and you know, as you know, they're down to a somewhat of a skeletal staff. So that, but I doubt if it would go any further than that. That's what they're telling me.
Do we have any inner workings with them, or do they just peek around? We do interact with them on a kind of regular basis. Joe works with Debbie Polly, who's the CFO, but really kind of point person. There are a few others that we do work with from time to time. What ultimately happens to the staff, I think will close, but they are going to keep a website up, John, for communications with former faculty, alum, and students, just to, give them a sense of where things now reside. They're disposing of records and that'll be posted on the website. I don't believe, and I'm not the that the staff will continue in capacity after the wind down is completed, which we expect now to be July 15th. I do believe they do have to, there is another hearing or a final disposition scheduled with the bankruptcy court that they're working towards.
To add on to that though, one of the issue or concerns and goals that I personally have is to engage the St. Rose alumni folks. Hopefully maybe create an alumni home or alumni house or something to continue the legacy of St. Rose. I think that's very important that we do that and provide that opportunity. And I'm going to make sure it gets included in our planning process.
And just as a point of, if anybody would happen to be interested in a 10-foot tall statue of the 10 Commandments, it's yours if you can come and get it. Mr. Nigro is a very devout person. I think it would look wonderful. It would look wonderful on the front lawn.
I think it's being delivered this afternoon.
When you go home, you'll see it. Thank you. But all kidding aside.
And then you'll get the bill.
There are some religious artifacts that have to be disposed of, and I don't mean thrown away.
Very careful.
But some of these are what is referred to as consecrated items, and they have to be disposed of according to a very specific and strict policy. And we've been working with the college on that, and some area institutions, St. Vincent de Paul Church down the block has offered to deal with some of the consecrated items in the interfaith sanctuary, but this is not the kind of stuff if nobody wants, you just put out in a dumpster. That's not how it's disposed of. So, there's tons of artwork on the campus that the college has reached out and talked to the artists who are former students who did that. They've sent some to these students, but some of the students are no longer with us, and others just don't want it. So there is going to have to be some plan to dispose or to locate them. As Nick says, we may decide that there's a place on the campus that we designate to put some of these things as a commemoration of the faculty, staff, and alum and students.
Are we doing that on our own, or would we be working with the St. Rose people?
Well, I think it'd be kind of, we work with the St. Rose people, the alumni, Interested Alumni Association, and try to keep that move going. And I would envision that we would have, we talk about a senior learning opportunity and kind of incorporate the St. Rose legacy and alumni in those discussions. I would personally, and I can't speak for the whole board, create an alumni house or an alumni center. We got plenty of buildings to do that and make that a welcoming place for them. And I've actually read about other universities that colleges that have actually created an alumni opportunity to return to the area and get housing and so on and so forth. So that's all what we're going to discuss. How we're going to do that, I think, is still an open.
Obviously, there would be a lot of sensitivity.
Yes, I think part of our mission is to preserve the legacy of St. Rose College in some way.
Another area that we have received inquiries on are various plaques and or things on the campus that were done in memory of people or as a result of some level of philanthropy. You know, one we were just looking at yesterday was the statue of Thelma Lally right next to the Lally building. It's a very nice bronze statue, you know, probably 8, 10, 12 feet tall with her and her child, and she was very passionate about education. Both her and her husband, as you know, John, passed away. But, you know, those are things that deserve to be, you know, preserved and so, and we've got probably 50 or more plaques around the campus. Various rooms, and as you walk around this building, you see names of people, some you know, some you don't, who've you know, funded some of the rooms, and we had one individual that a tree was planted in memory of their daughter, I believe, and they wanted us to dig that tree up and give it to them, and we told them that's not going to happen. It's you know, it's about a 15, 20-foot tall tree.
I think I know the answer to this, but I've received a couple of calls, people I know that have scholarships here.
Yeah.
And I assume that's separate.
That's all with the college. Yeah, that's all with the college.
There's actually a legal process
Yeah.
to go through.
I was just going to mention you know, one of the unfortunate pieces that the college had, they had a $40 million investment endowment. Roughly half of that was restricted, you know, for specific purposes like scholarships and whatnot, and the other half was not. The college went back and for some of the restricted, they went back to the original donors, asked them to unrestrict it to help them with the financial issues. But some of those people have passed away or were unwilling to. And those, from what I'm told by the college staff and attorneys, is that there's a process, as Nick was mentioning, for that to go to the Attorney General, and there's a fund that then if somebody in the Attorney General gives those monies out for similar purposes at other institutions.
I just read an article about Wells College, just going through that right now, and gave it to Kevin. So there's a legal process that, you know, it has to go to the AG's office, but the town would be involved to help us through that. Well, it's the college, not us. It's the college that has to do that, not us. Okay. Any more for Kevin? No,
So
can I have a resolution?
if the board would choose to do so, I understand the reason for going into executive session would be to discuss the potential disposition and acquisition, of real estate related to the former properties of St. Rose campus, the authority properties. That's reason one. And then also to seek and obtain legal counsel, for the board to seek and obtain legal counsel. Those would be the two reasons for the motion.
Allison, Jasmine, all those in favor of going into executive session, I will include the board, our attorney, anybody else? Right. Hopefully we won't be too long.
Possible voting on conclusion of the.
We don't vote in the executive session.
When you come out.
There's likely, if it was, just be one resolution.
Thanks.
Yeah.